if you take a look over here now, which is to, you can see the debug console, you see that it looks like that you have created a multiple instance of this particular app database, right? So which means that we are creating a multiple instance. So if you go to the home screen, we have the new instance created over here. If you go to the stream, we have a new instance created over here. Everywhere we are creating multiple instance over here, right? So we have created so many instances. That's why it is complaining about that you have created a multiple instance. So that is not a good practice, and it always recommended us to have a single instance of our database, because it need to be available throughout our application. So you may have insert here, you may have or delete over there. We are always changing our database, and we are adding, inserting a file. So if you have a multiple instance, then you may have a corrupt database later, because you are reading from one instance and adding from another instance, so it may corrupt your database. So the good practice is to create a single instance. And to create a single instance, there are multiple ways. You can just create a single instance of this database class, or use some dependency injection, and or you can also use we'll be using a provider package over here, which is not actually a singleton or a dependency injection, but it is a state management system. So basically we'll be using a provider. We will create a single instance of our app.db. So let's do that one. So I can just press the F1, and you can see that add a dependency, and search for the package of the provider over here, and this will add us the dependency of the provider. So if you go to the pub spec that YML file, then it has added a provider package for us. So it is a really famous, and most of the developer are using the provider package, because it's really good to use, and it provides a lot of functionality. So we'll be going to use it in our application. So let's go to the main.dat file, and let us add the provider package in our main, the function over here. You can also add over material, or if you want to add it over here, you can add it. But why we want to add it to this main function is we want that particular app database to be a singleton, or available throughout our application. So if we create it over here, that will be available throughout our application, because this is a main entry point, and it will be available throughout our application lifecycle. So we don't want to create in other the child we get or any place. So we just want to have it over here. So let's add a provider package over here, the provider, and it has a create, and this create will take a one function. It takes a function of the build context, right? So we need to provide a context over here, and then it will have a return type of the our app.db. So this will create an instance for us. So that's also right. So this is simple way that we can create. We also can provide a child over here, and we need to provide a child of our my app, right? So this is the entry point for our application, so we must provide it over here. And the third, we can also add the dispose function over here, which will basically dispose our database. So it takes a two function parameter, which is build context and the app.db. So we just have to add a context over here, context, and we need to add the app.db. So it should be of our db, and then this will have a return type, so we need to dispose it, right? So db dot, we can call the close over here, and that should close our database whenever our application exists, right? So when our application is exit and it has been removed from the stack, so this will call the main function, and it will dispose our database too. So this is the way to dispose our database, because we are not going to call it explicitly on the dispose function over here. So once we have added it over here, that we need to implement it, right? So let's go to our future over here first of all, and then I can remove this, the let db variable. So we are not going to use it, right? So let's remove all of this, And now how do we get it over here? So we need to call that get employee function over here. So I need to use a provider and dot off, and I'll get the context over here, and dot I will get the employee. So we are not getting it anything because we need to pass the generic type over here. If you take a off over here, it takes a type over here, right? It takes a generic type of t. So here we will pass the app.db, and now we will have an option to call our get employee function over here. That's good, right? So we just have added, and I think that's it. So we don't have to do any other thing. So let's go to the stream 2, and in the stream here we will be also removing all of this. So we are not going to use the db, and then we should go over here and we should call our stream function over here. So same provider dot of the, and provide the context, and here we will have to pass the type of the app.db, and dot get the employee stream. So that should be fine. Okay, so we got that one, and let's go to the add employee 2. Here we will be also removing this one. We are not going to use, and basically you have to remove everywhere, right? So we don't want to create a multiple instance. And over here, and where we are using it, so here, right? So we need to call that one again, provider, right? And the dot off and the context, and then we will be passing here our type. So this will be of the app.db that we have, and that should be fine. And we will also go to the edit employee. So we have to do the same thing over here. So we will first remove our delete variable of the db, and then we will also remove it from here, and then we have to call it somewhere here, right? So call the provider and dot off, and pass in the context. Here we will pass in the type of the app.db, and that should do for us. So just copy the same thing over here. I think we have one more function to update here, right? So delete the employee. So I think we'll just paste it over here, and that's fine, right? So where is the error coming from? Here. So we again have to pass it over here, and yeah, so we have replaced it with the provider already, all of those. And if you go to home, and do we have any requirement over here? So no, I think we don't have anything related to database activity over here. That should be fine. So let us run our application, and we should not see that particular warning message anymore. So let's get the app, and we are over here. Let's switch it to, and we are not seeing any of the error message anymore. So when you go over here and add the something over here, and let's add a date, and that's fine, right? So just save this one, and then we are getting some error. So what is the error? Let us check, and we have to fix that one. And we have an error, and so it's basically complaining us that we are listening to a value, but we haven't called the false option. So this is like caused by the event handler, like the button pressed, and call provider of without passing the listener. To fix this, that we have to pass the context of listener to the false. So let's go to the add employee, I think here, and here in the second parameter we have to pass the listener as the false over here. And let's go and do the same thing on our edit. So whenever we are calling, or whenever we are using outside of the build context, so which means that if you are not inside of the build context, if you are calling through the on button press, so we have to pass it over here. So how we can do is just pass it as the listener and to the false over here, right? So we have to false it, and on delete, and do we have any place here, right? And here we will also call the listener to the false. Let's rerun our application, and let's try to test it one more time, and just do something random words over here, and then we'll just select any date and just click on OK, and let's try to save it. Okay, so we got the over here. That's great, right? So we don't have any issue, and even we are on the changing the different tab, we are not getting that error. And even if I go and update, so this is edit employee, and yeah, I think in the edit employee we still have error because we are not getting that particular the ID, right? So are we getting, so if you go over here, so I think you need to fix that one, it's not coming up over here. And but if we have an add, I think that is fine. So if I go and add and just add the random something over here, select the random date and just save it. Okay, so it's working fine, and it is working fine over here, right? And if I go down, I think let me clear it out, and if I go to add a new, just add some random over here, and that should be a 4, and just save this one again. So you got a 15, and let's go back, it's already added over here, right? So only the thing is that we cannot edit currently. So why is that one? So let's go and let's fix that one. So if you go to the edit over here, and that should be, we should be calling that particular function. All right, so if I go to get employee over here, and where is the get employee function? So get employee over here. So I have an option to pass in over here as a listen, right? So ls listen to the false. All right, and let me try to rebuild my application, and let me try to rerun, and let's go and select this one. Okay, so now we are getting, so we just have to pass in listen there too, and since this is outside of the build context, and that should be fine. So if I go to get employee, since this is using a stream, so if I update it 10 and change the date to like a 9 over here, and if I just save this one, so we got that, close it. If I go back, so we got update. So this is the stream that we have been using. So if I go to here, that is the stream function, right? So we are calling this, so we don't have to update every time. So otherwise we have to update it. If you go over here, and if you try to update this one and change it to some different date over here, and then you try to save it true, and then if you go back, you are not going to see that update. So that's the difference between the stream and then the future, right? So I hope you enjoyed it, and let's meet up in the next one. Until then, have a great day.